And the rise of GB News, which I think on many segments now beats other news networks, including the BBC, actually, in some slots, is my understanding, that would not have been possible. It was made possible because so many people in this country feel disenfranchised by the BBC, feel like not only are their views not represented on screen, but actually their views are sneered at on screen. And people who, for example, express perfectly legitimate concerns about immigration are smeared and insulted as being racist. Bringing it back to this Trump situation, what I've seen, I come at this as someone who grew up loving shows like The Office, and the BBC has a place in my heart, and I know also, as someone who built a company, look, it's very easy to tear things down and destroy them. It's much harder to build them, right? Build them up. But I will say this, the BBC has behaved appallingly now for years and years. It has acted with a sense of impunity, which hopefully now this might have some chance of changing. The speech in question, what really worries me, Michelle, that the reason why I'm not that bullish that this will be a turning point for the BBC, is that senior figures at the BBC keep using the word mistake to describe this. Now, I get it. Anyone in any job can make a mistake, and there's a massive difference between an honest mistake, right, and a deliberate attempt at weapons-grade propaganda. And in this scenario, taking a man's speech and taking the two things that were said 52 minutes apart. 52. Anyone could take clips of us speaking where we've said things 52 minutes apart and make them sound like, and here's what they did. They made it sound like he was saying the opposite of what he actually did. And instead of, and my understanding, by the way, is Tim Davie actually knew about this dossier and didn't say anything. If they really cared about the reputation of the BBC, and maybe he'd have stood a chance, by the way, of keeping his job and retaining some trust in the BBC if he'd gone out, said this was a huge problem and apologised. And instead, you had senior figures at the BBC, including big news presenters, actually, kept using the word mistake. And any reasonable person assessing this on its merits knows this is not a mistake, it's insidious. And sadly, Michelle, all these issues only ever seem to go in one direction. I'm afraid the BBC newsroom has a serious problem. I think it is rotten. I hope it is repairable, but there's no evidence to suggest that it is.